My name is Grace Miller, and I was 12 years old the day my parents left me behind at Grand Central Station. For years, I told people I got lost. It was easier that way. Easier than saying the truth out loud. Easier than watching their faces change when I said, "No, they didn't lose me. They left me." Because when you tell someone your parents abandoned you, they always search your face for a reason, as if a child must have done something terrible to be left behind. But I did not do anything. I was 12. I had a purple backpack, a worn-out denim jacket, and a paperback book I had borrowed from my school library. And I loved my parents more than anything in the world. My father's name was Richard Miller. He was a tall man with tired eyes and a voice that always sounded impatient. My mother's name was Elaine Miller. She was beautiful in a cold way, the kind of woman who smiled for strangers and sighed when I entered the room. We lived in Queens in a small apartment that always smelled like cigarette smoke, old coffee, and my mother's perfume. My parents fought almost every night. Money, bills, my father's drinking, my mother's resentment, and sometimes me. Actually, most of the time me. "She's old enough to understand," my father would say. "She's old enough to stop needing so much," my mother would answer. I learned early how to be quiet. Quiet children survive louder homes. I made my own breakfast. I walked myself to school. I did my homework under the kitchen table while they argued above me. But still, I loved them. That is the painful thing about being a child. You can be neglected and still believe love is waiting somewhere inside the people hurting you. Then came the day everything changed. It was a Saturday in October. Cold, gray, and busy. My mother woke me up early and told me to get dressed. "We're going into the city," she said. I sat up quickly. "Really?" And she nodded without looking at me. "Don't take too much. Just your backpack." I was excited. We almost never went anywhere together. I packed my book, a bottle of water, and the last granola bar from the cabinet. I wore my denim jacket and braided my hair myself because my mother said she did not have time. My father was waiting downstairs, smoking near the car. He looked annoyed. "Finally," he muttered. I climbed into the back seat. "Where are we going?" I asked. Neither of them answered. At first, I thought it was a surprise. Maybe a museum, maybe lunch, maybe for once a family day. So I pressed my face to the window and watched the city pass by. Grand Central Station was the most beautiful place I had ever seen. The ceiling looked like the sky had been painted indoors. People rushed in every direction. Shoes clicked against the floor. Voices echoed. Trains came and went like the whole world was moving at once. I remember holding my mother's hand tightly. Not because I was scared, because I was happy. For one small moment, I felt like we were a normal family. My father bought a cup of coffee. My mother checked her watch again and again. Then she crouched down in front of me. "Grace," she said, her voice strangely soft. "Stay right here for a few minutes." I looked around. "Where are you going?" "Your father and I need to speak with someone." "Can I come?" "No." My father stepped closer. "Just sit there and don't move." He pointed to a wooden bench near one of the side walls. I sat down. My mother adjusted the collar of my jacket. That small gesture gave me hope. She had not touched me gently in a long time. "We'll be right back," she said. I nodded. Then I watched them walk away. At first, I was calm. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then 20. I read my book for a little while, but the words started blurring. I looked for my mother's red coat in the crowd. Nothing. I looked for my father's gray hat. Nothing. An hour passed. My stomach began to hurt. I told myself they were delayed. Maybe the person they had to meet was late. Maybe they were buying tickets. Maybe they were getting food. Children are very good at making excuses for adults. After 2 hours, I started crying quietly, not loudly. I did not want strangers to stare. A police officer finally noticed me. He came over and bent down. "Hey, sweetheart, are you okay?" I wiped my face quickly. "I'm waiting for my parents." "How long have you been waiting?" I looked at the big clock. "I don't know." "What are their names?" I told him. He asked if I knew their phone number. I did. He called. No answer. He called again. No answer. He asked if I knew our address. I told him that too. Hours later, another officer came back with a face I will never forget. He looked sad. Not confused. Sad. That was when I knew something was wrong. They took me to a small office inside the station. Someone gave me hot chocolate. Someone else asked questions. Did your parents say where they were going? No. Did they seem upset? They're always upset. The woman writing notes stopped for a second, then continued. That night, I was taken to a children's shelter. I kept telling everyone my parents would come. I said they must have made a mistake. I said they would be worried. I said my mother promised. But no one came. The next day, a social worker told me they had gone to our apartment. It was empty. Not messy. Empty. Clothes gone. Photos gone. Documents gone. My parents had packed before taking me to the station. They had not lost me. They had planned it. I remember asking one question. Did they take my stuffed rabbit? The social worker looked confused. What? My rabbit. It was on my bed. She looked down at her papers. I don't know, honey. That was when I broke. Not because of the apartment, not because of the abandonment. Because in that moment, I understood something a 12-year-old should never have to understand. My parents had not only left me, they had erased me. The years after that were not easy. I moved through 3 foster homes before I turned 16. The first family was kind but temporary. They already had 4 children and no room for forever. The second home was strict. I learned to keep my things in a backpack because anything left out could disappear. The third home belonged to a woman named Mrs. Alvarez. She was not rich, she was not perfect, but she was steady. And steady felt like a miracle. She had silver hair, warm hands, and a kitchen that always smelled like garlic and bread. The first night I arrived, she showed me my room. It was small, but the bed had a yellow blanket and a lamp shaped like a flower. This is yours, she said. I stood in the doorway. For how long? Her face softened. For as long as you need it. I did not believe her. Not at first. I kept my backpack packed for 6 months. Every night, I placed it beside the bed, ready to leave before someone could send me away. Mrs. Alvarez noticed, but she never forced me to unpack. She just kept showing up. Breakfast every morning. A ride to school when it rained. A candle on my birthday cake. A hand on my shoulder when I woke up from nightmares. Love, I learned, is not always loud. Sometimes love is someone remembering you hate onions. Sometimes love is someone knocking before entering your room. Sometimes love is someone staying after you test them again and again. When I was 17, Mrs. Alvarez asked if I wanted her to attend my school graduation. I shrugged and said, "You don't have to." She looked offended. "Of course I have to. Who else is going to cry loudly and embarrass you?" I laughed. It surprised me. I had not laughed like that in years. And she did cry loudly. When my name was called, she stood up and clapped like I had won an Olympic medal. I looked into the audience and saw her wiping her eyes with a tissue. For the first time since Grand Central, I felt chosen. After graduation, I worked 2 jobs and went to community college at night. I wanted to become a nurse. Maybe because hospitals were places where people were not left alone. Maybe because I knew what it felt like to be scared and waiting for someone to come. Mrs. Alvarez died when I was 24. Cancer. Fast and cruel. I was holding her hand when she took her last breath. Before she passed, she looked at me and whispered, "You were never unwanted, Grace. Some people are just too broken to know the value of what they have." I cried harder than I had cried since I was 12. Because she was the closest thing to a mother I had ever known. After she died, I kept going. I became a nurse, then a trauma nurse, then, eventually, a nurse practitioner. I built a quiet life, a small apartment, a circle of friends, a cat named Pumpkin. I never married. I tried dating, but every time someone got too close, a part of me returned to that bench at Grand Central. Waiting, watching, terrified of being left again. I told myself I was independent, strong, self-sufficient. But sometimes strength is just fear wearing better clothes. 20 years passed. I was 32 when the call came. It was a Tuesday morning. I had just finished a night shift at the hospital and was sitting in my car, too tired to drive home. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then something made me answer. Hello? A woman's voice asked, "Is this Grace Miller?" I froze. I had not used that last name in years. Legally, I had changed it to Grace Alvarez after Mrs. Alvarez died. "This is Grace," I said carefully. "My name is Patricia. I'm a social worker at St. Mary's Hospital. I'm calling about Elaine and Richard Miller." The names hit me like cold water. For a moment, I but not speak. She continued gently. "They listed you as their emergency contact." I laughed once. It came out sharp and ugly. "That's impossible." "I understand this may be complicated." "No," I said. "You don't." There was a pause. Then she said, "Your father is in critical condition. Your mother is also admitted. She has asked to see you." My hand tightened around the steering wheel. After 20 years of silence, my mother wanted to see me. From a hospital bed, not on my birthdays, not when I graduated, not when I became a nurse, not when Mrs. Alvarez died. Now, when she needed something. I asked, "How did they get this number?" She said she found it through old records and online searches. Of course, they could find me when death was close, but not when I was a child. Patricia spoke softly. "You are not obligated to come." That sentence broke something open inside me. Not obligated. For 20 years, I had imagined this moment in different ways. Sometimes they came to my door crying. Sometimes I screamed at them. Sometimes they explained everything, and somehow the pain finally made sense. But in every version, I felt something. Anger, relief, hate, love. Now sitting in my car, I felt only emptiness. "I'll think about it," I said. Then I hung up. I went home and sat on my kitchen floor until sunrise filled the windows. Pumpkin rubbed against my leg. I did not move. By afternoon, I called my best friend Mia. She arrived with coffee and did not ask questions until I was ready. When I told her, she whispered, "Are you going?" "I don't know." "What do you want?" I stared at the wall. "I want to not care." Mia sat beside me. "But you do." I hated that she was right. I did not care about them the way a daughter should. But I cared about the little girl on that bench. I cared about giving her the one thing she never got. Answers. So the next day, I went to St. Mary's Hospital. I knew the smell before I walked in. Antiseptic, coffee, fear. Hospitals have the same language everywhere. A nurse led me to the ICU. My father was in the first room. Richard Miller looked nothing like the man who left me. The tall, impatient father from my memories was gone. In his place was a thin old man connected to tubes, his skin gray, his mouth slightly open. He was unconscious. I stood at the doorway and felt nothing at first. Then I noticed his hands. Older now. Still familiar. The same hands that once lifted me onto his shoulders. The same hands that let go of mine at Grand Central. I stepped back. "I need to see Elaine," I told the nurse. My mother was in a room down the hall. She was awake. When I entered, she turned her head slowly. For a second, I saw the woman from my childhood. Then I saw what time had done to her. Her hair was thin and white. Her face was lined. Her lips trembled when she saw me. "Grace," she whispered. I did not answer. She started crying immediately. "My baby." I felt my stomach twist. "No," I said quietly. She blinked. "You don't get to call me that." Her face crumpled. I stood at the foot of her bed, arms crossed, heart pounding. For years, I had dreamed of asking why. But now that I was there, the word felt too small. Why? Why did you leave me? Why didn't you come back? Why didn't you love me enough? My mother wiped her tears with shaking fingers. You came. I came for answers. She nodded, crying harder. I'm sorry. I almost laughed. Sorry. 20 years of pain reduced to 2 words. I said, that's not an answer. She closed her eyes. Your father was in debt, bad debt, dangerous people. We were scared. I stared at her. So you left your child? We thought, she swallowed. We thought you'd be safer. The room went silent. I looked at her, trying to understand. You left me on a bench in a train station because you thought I'd be safer? We were desperate. You could have taken me to the police. We were afraid they'd find us. You could have left me with family. We didn't have anyone. You could have stayed. Her face collapsed. I know. My voice shook. You packed the apartment before you took me there. She looked away. You planned it. Yes. The honesty hit harder than any lie. My mother whispered, Your father said it was the only way. He said if they came after us, they might hurt you too. He said a child in the system had a better chance than a child running with us. I felt like I could not breathe. All these years, I said. I thought you left because I was too much. She looked horrified. No. I thought I was unwanted. No, Grace. No. I thought there was something wrong with me. She sobbed. There was nothing wrong with you. Then why didn't you come back? She covered her mouth. That was the question. The real one. Not why did you leave? Why did you stay gone? She whispered. At first we couldn't. Then later, we were ashamed. I stared at her. Ashamed? We thought you hated us. I was 12. I know. You were my mother. I know. You let shame matter more than me. She broke down completely. And for a moment, I wanted to feel pity. But all I could see was that bench. My small hands gripping my backpack. My eyes searching the crowd. The police officer asking my parents' names. The shelter bed. The foster homes. The nights I cried silently because I thought no one was coming for me because no one wanted to. My mother reached toward me. I stepped back. Her hand fell. I don't know how to make this right, she whispered. You can't. She nodded. I know. I looked toward the hallway where my father lay unconscious. Does he know I'm here? He asked for you before they sedated him. What did he say? My mother hesitated. He said, Tell Grace I was a coward. I swallowed hard. I hated that those words hurt me. I hated that part of me still wanted him to wake up and explain. I hated that the child inside me still wanted my father to look at me and say he was sorry. I stayed at the hospital for 3 hours. Not because I forgave them, because leaving felt too much like becoming them. My father woke briefly that evening. A nurse called me into the room. He looked at me through half-open eyes. For a moment, he seemed confused. Then recognition came slowly. Gracie, he whispered. No one had called me that in 20 years. I stood beside the bed, his eyes filled with tears. You look like your mother did when she was young. I said nothing. He took a shaky breath. I'm sorry. My throat tightened. You left me. His eyes closed. Yes. At Grand Central. Tears slipped down his temples. Yes. I waited for you. His mouth trembled. I know. No, I said, my voice breaking. You don't know. You don't know what it felt like to watch every face in that station and think one of them would be yours. You don't know what it felt like to realize my parents were not coming back." He cried silently. "I was scared," he whispered. "So was I." That broke him. "I thought I was protecting you." "You were protecting yourself." His eyes opened again. He looked at me for a long time. Then he nodded. Yes. That single word was the first honest thing he had ever given me. Yes. He had been a coward. Yes. He had failed me. Yes. He had let fear become an excuse for abandonment. I expected honesty to make me feel better. It did not. It only made the wound cleaner. My father died 2 days later. I was not holding his hand. My mother was. When the hospital called, I sat on the edge of my bed and listened. Then I thanked them, and I hung up. I did not cry right away. Grief for someone who hurt you is complicated. You do not only mourn the person, you mourn the apology that came too late, the childhood that never happened, the father he could have been, the daughter you never got to be. My mother survived, barely. She was moved to a long-term care facility. Before she left the hospital, she asked me one thing. "Will you come see me again?" I looked at her for a long time. The answer should have been easy. No. She deserved no. But life is rarely that clean. "I don't know," I said. She nodded. "That's more than I deserve." For once, she was right. Months passed. I went back to my life. Work, coffee, pumpkin, Mia, quiet evenings. But something inside me had shifted. The answers did not heal everything, but they removed the lie I had lived under. I was not abandoned because I was unlovable. I was abandoned because my parents were afraid, selfish, broken, and weak. That truth hurt. But it also freed me. One Sunday, I went to Grand Central Station. I had avoided it for 20 years. But that day, I stood under the painted ceiling and watched people rush around me. The station looked smaller than it did in my memory. Maybe because I was no longer 12. I found a bench near the wall. Not the exact one, maybe, but close enough. I sat down. For a few minutes, I let myself remember. The backpack, the book, the promise. We'll be right back. Then I closed my eyes and imagined the little girl I had been. I imagined sitting beside her. I imagined taking her hand. And I whispered, "They were wrong to leave you." People passed by. No one noticed. I kept whispering, "You were not too much. You were not unwanted. You deserve to be kept." And finally, I cried. Not for Richard, not for Elaine, for Grace. The girl who waited. The girl who survived. The girl who grew up anyway. A month later, I visited my mother. She looked shocked when I entered. "You came," she said. I sat beside her bed. "I came because I needed to tell you something." She looked afraid. I took a breath. "I don't forgive you." Her face fell, but she nodded. "Not yet," I added. Her eyes lifted. "I don't know if I ever will. But I'm done carrying the belief that your choices were my fault." She cried quietly. "They weren't," she whispered. "I know that now." For a long moment, we sat in silence. Then she said, "Mrs. Alvarez, was she good to you?" My eyes softened. "Yes." "I'm glad." I looked at her carefully. I changed my last name to hers. Pain moved across my mother's face, but she did not argue. "She earned that," she whispered. "Yes," I said. "She did. That was the beginning of something. Not a reunion, not a happy ending, but something honest. I visited my mother sometimes. Not every week, not on command, only when I chose to. We spoke about small things at first: weather, food, hospital staff. Then slowly, harder things. My father's debt. Their years after leaving. Their regret. My childhood. My anger. My mother never asked me to call her mom again. And I respected that she didn't. One day she said, "I spent 20 years punishing myself." I replied, "And I spent 20 years thinking I was the punishment." She cried. So did I. Healing did not look like a movie. There was no dramatic hug that fixed everything, no perfect forgiveness, no magical family restoration. Just two women sitting in a room with the wreckage of what had been done, one who had caused the wound, one who had survived it, and both finally telling the truth. Today, I am 34. My mother is still alive. We are not close. But we are no longer strangers. I still visit Grand Central once a year, not to remember being abandoned, to remember I survived. I stand under that beautiful ceiling and watch the world move. Then I think about the phone call that pulled the past back into my life. 20 years later, they called from a hospital bed. Maybe they wanted forgiveness. Maybe they wanted peace. Maybe they wanted to die without guilt. But I did not go there to save them. I went there to save the part of me still waiting on that bench. And I finally told her the truth. You were not left because you were worthless. You were left because they were weak. And weakness in others does not decide your value. My parents abandoned me at Grand Central Station when I was 12. 20 years later, they called from a hospital bed. And I went. Not because they deserved me, but because I deserved answers. And in the end, the answer was simple. They left. I lived. They broke the family. I rebuilt myself. And that is the difference between the people who abandon you and the person you become after they are gone.